I want to start with something simple. You're not tired because of what you did today. You're tired because of what you thought. You wake up, and your mind is already running. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly active. You think about what you need to do, then about what you forgot to do, then about something someone said yesterday, then about how you responded, then about how you should have responded. And it doesn't stop there, because your mind doesn't just think. It returns back to the same moment, the same conversation, the same decision, and each time it adds something, a new angle, a new possibility, a new what if. At some point, you realize something strange. You're not solving the problem anymore. You're just circling it. And the worst part is, you know you're overthinking, but that doesn't stop it. So the question becomes, why can't I just stop thinking so much? The answer is uncomfortable, because it means something in you is working exactly as it was designed to. Overthinking is not random. It's not a glitch. It's not your brain breaking. It's your brain trying to protect you. At some point in your life, thinking more helped. Maybe you grew up in an environment where things were unpredictable, where moods changed quickly, where the emotional atmosphere could shift without warning. So your brain adapted. It learned to scan, to notice small changes, to predict what might happen next. If you could anticipate, you could prepare. If you could prepare, you could stay safe. And that strategy worked. But here's the problem. Your brain didn't update when your environment changed. So now you're using the same level of analysis in situations that don't require it. A simple message becomes something to decode. A small decision becomes something to optimize. A conversation becomes something to replay because your brain still believes, if I think about it long enough, I'll find certainty. But here's the truth. There are things thinking cannot give you. Certainty about the future, clarity about what someone really meant, a perfect answer that removes all risk. So your mind keeps going, not because it's broken, but because it hasn't found what it's looking for. And it won't, because overthinking isn't just about solving problems. It's about trying to eliminate uncertainty. And uncertainty is not something you can think your way out of. That's why it feels endless. But there's another side to this, something most people don't realize. The same mind that overthinks is also capable of deep thinking. You notice things other people miss. You pick up on subtle details. You can imagine multiple outcomes before they happen. That's not weakness. That's intelligence. The problem isn't that you think too much. It's that your thinking has nowhere to land. It keeps searching for a level of certainty that doesn't exist. So what do you do with that? You don't try to shut your mind off. That never works. You change your relationship with it. Instead of asking, how do I stop thinking? Ask something different. Is this something thinking can actually solve? Because some things can. Planning, learning, understanding. But some things can't. What someone felt. What will happen next? Whether you made the perfect choice. And once you see the difference, something shifts. You don't stop thinking. You just stop expecting thinking to do something it was never meant to do. And slowly, the loops start to loosen, not because your mind became quieter, but because it finally stopped chasing something it could never catch. So if your mind is still running right now, that's okay. It means it cares. It means it's trying. But maybe tonight, you don't need another answer. Maybe you just need to let the question be unfinished and get some rest, because your mind isn't your enemy. It just needs a place where it doesn't have to keep searching. And sometimes that place is silence, even if it only lasts a few minutes. And here's the part that most people never really hear. Overthinking doesn't just come from fear, it also comes from responsibility. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your thoughts matter, that your decisions matter, that your actions have consequences. So you started taking things seriously, more seriously than most people. You don't just want to make a decision, you want to make the right decision, not the one that's good enough, not the one that works for now, the one that avoids regret, the one that doesn't hurt anyone, the one that won't come back later and make you question yourself. And that's where the loop begins, because the more you care about getting it right, the harder it becomes to move forward. Every option starts to split into what could go wrong, what could be misunderstood, what could be missed. And suddenly, you're not deciding anymore. You're analyzing, and analyzing feels productive. It feels like progress. But after a certain point, It stops being progress and starts being avoidance, not conscious avoidance, not something you choose, but a subtle shift where thinking replaces acting. Because as long as you're still thinking, you haven't risked anything yet. You haven't made the wrong move. You haven't been judged. You haven't faced the outcome. So your mind keeps you there just a little longer. Think a bit more. Just one more angle. Just one more possibility. But the clarity you're waiting for doesn't arrive because clarity doesn't come from perfect thinking. It comes from movement, from doing something, seeing what happens, adjusting. But that requires something your mind doesn't like: uncertainty. And this is where things start to change. Not when you stop thinking, but when you become aware of why you're thinking. Ask yourself, honestly, am I trying to understand this? Or am I trying to control the outcome? Because those are not the same thing. Understanding leads somewhere. Control keeps you stuck. And overthinking is almost always an attempt to control something that cannot be controlled. How someone feels about you, how a situation will unfold, how your future will look. So your mind runs simulations over and over, hoping that one of them will feel certain enough to act on. But certainty is not the entry point to action. It's the result of it. And that's the shift most people never make. They wait until they feel ready, until they feel sure, until the noise in their head goes quiet. But that moment rarely comes because your mind is designed to keep scanning, to keep questioning, to keep looking for what could go wrong. So instead of waiting for silence, you learn to move with the noise. You make the decision while still feeling unsure. You send the message while still overthinking it. You take the step while your mind is still running, and something unexpected happens. Nothing breaks. The situation doesn't collapse. The worst-case scenario doesn't unfold. The world doesn't punish you for not being perfect. And slowly, your brain starts collecting new evidence. Evidence that you can act without total certainty. Evidence that imperfect decisions are still okay. Evidence that you don't need to think forever to be safe. And that's how the pattern begins to shift. Not through force, not through stopping your thoughts, but through experience. Because your brain doesn't change from logic alone. It changes from what it lives through. So if your mind is loud, if it keeps looping, if it keeps pulling you back into the same thoughts, don't treat that as failure. See it for what it is. A system that learned to protect you and just hasn't learned yet. That you're allowed to move forward without having everything figured out. And maybe that's the real goal. Not to become someone who never overthinks, but to become someone who can still live their life, even when their mind is busy. Because your life doesn't start when your thoughts stop.